For more on Venezuela's currency reforms and its economy, I spoke to Ray Zucaro, managing principal of SW Asset Management, and I started off by asking him just how bad the situation is right now.
You know, it really is serious. I mean, if you look at what countries over for the most part took advantage of the commodity boom. Russia built up the reserves. Brazil built up the reserves. Venezuela spent like a bunch of drunken sailors, and throughout the high oil price time, they actually took on more debt than they had before. And so now that oil prices, which are Venezuela's main export, which provide over 95% of the country's hard currency earnings, now that oil prices have corrected, suddenly the parties stop and the bills are starting to roll in.
There's a potpourri of issues. We're not going to really get to all of them, but the ones that I want to highlight is, number one, you have an economy that's really struggling even before all of these things that we're talking about right now happen, so that didn't help. Second, right, you have the fact that oil prices are down to the point where they're just losing more money essentially every single day. And then you have these issues of government reforms that have ultimately backfired, this controlling of prices, this trying to get everybody gets everything. It hasn't really worked, and now we're going to talk about what's going to happen next. First off, the corporate environment, the corporate world, companies like Ford and airlines who used to be doing, you know, a relatively normal amount of business with Venezuela, they're now either going to back out and get out of the country, right, or they're going to change their entire strategy completely. What do you tell them?
Look, Ford basically wrote off their entire investment in Venezuela. Clorox said that they were going to leave Venezuela and their assets were suddenly seized. 3M is also in the process of looking at it. The airlines, American Airlines has reduced their capacity of flights to Venezuela. Frankly, the government has put such burdens on the economy and the corporate sector, limiting profits, not being able to fire employees. It's very, very hard to do business in Venezuela.
We're talking about sort of this managed socialism, right? They're not huge fans of capitalism to begin with, so it's not right, fair to compare Venezuelan politics to what's happening in Washington, D.C. or other parts of Europe. They want to have everything for everyone. I'm putting that very nicely.
Right.
It's not working. The people there, are they likely to speak out against this, or is there more time that has to pass before we see more discontent?
Well, Phil, one thing though, the idea of spreading the wealth, that's all fine and good. But what is actually really happening? Venezuela today has 4 exchange rates. The lowest of 6.3, where the government has said that they want to spend 70% of the hard currency that enters the country, they want to sell at 6.3 bolivars to the dollar. So anyone that's connected, or using the Venezuelan term, enchufado, that has access to this subsidized currency can automatically turn around and sell the currency at 170 bolivars to the dollar, or the black market rate of $190. So the idea that they're giving wealth to the people, they're effectively giving wealth to the selective few that have access to the hard currency at the lowest of the official rate.
Let's get back to the foreign companies. So a lot of them are leaving. Is this permanent or is this temporary for them, you think?
Unless you see a real change in ideology of changing the way the government's operating, I personally would not open a business in Venezuela today. And you're actually seeing PDVSA, the government-owned oil company, as well as the joint venture partners that have remained in the country, are having a hard time finding human capital, people to run the operations in Venezuela because of all, whether it be the insecurity, whether it be the inability to move currency, whether the overall quality of life in Venezuela is all suffering. So is it a permanent thing? Nothing in life is permanent. Do I see it changing in the short, the medium term? Frankly, no, I don't. And this new currency regime that we touched on a little bit, they now introduced a new official exchange rate of 170 bolivars to the dollar. To your question about corporate earnings, Telefonica took almost a $3 billion write-down when they moved the currency to 50. Now the currency is 170. You have a lot of companies like Telefonica, like the airlines, specifically Copa Airlines, has a lot of money trapped in Venezuela at the official rate. Let's see what they report on the next quarterly earnings, what they value those dollars at.
Very quickly, I mean, we've been kind of tough on Venezuela for good reason. Is there anything positive you got from me on Venezuela and the economy?
I would say they're at the trough. If they do anything at this point, it's only upside from here. Again, it's textbook. What they've done till now has been absolutely wrong. if they free up the FX regimes, if they repeal some of these laws, if they take away the caps on profits, at this point, I don't think you can get much lower.